It's just after 10 o'clock. My name is Gardy. This is Clear Life Combat for KHEA Radio, and I have a guest with me. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and we're going to have some fun today. Hey, good morning.
Morning. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Let everybody know, what your name is and what all you have going on.
Definitely. I'm Adam Copley. I'm a MMA coach out of War Training Center. We have a pretty active roster here on the local scene, but also in the big show as well, man. And I'm looking forward to talking to you today.
All right. So there's been a lot that's going on in, combat sports. We had a pretty busy weekend. Did you get a chance to watch any of the UFC Fight Night and Derek Lewis? And then we had Tyron Woodley and we had Jake Paul. What'd you think about, I guess, both of those events?
Man, it was a great event. I didn't watch the Woodley and Paul fight until the next day. That's when I watched those, but I watched the UFC Fight Night, and I had that going on with my son's birthday party. But I definitely sat around the couch and paid attention to it. But yeah, it was great, man. Derek Lewis, he looked very calm and collected and patient, and got the KO pretty easily, which I wasn't surprised at all. That's what he does. But I was very happy how technical and tight he looked, and he seems to be improving every single time, man. And on top of that, Dawkins. Dawkins weighing in at 230 pounds at heavyweight. That just seems dumb to me, man.
Yeah. So one thing that I thought was pretty fun, after Derek Lewis, he's known for his sound bites and his interviews. He said something along the lines of, if you don't call my phone unless it's for a heavyweight a championship fight at 3 rounds.
Yeah,
Otherwise I will be in Jamaica with my wife. Something like that. I thought that was pretty fun.
he's an entertaining guy, man. One of the best on the mic.
Yes, yes. Okay, so you mentioned it was your son's birthday, but it was also your birthday. So happy birthday! What did y'all get into?
Last night I just ate gringos and hung out with the fam and took a nap around 8 p.m. and then played some video games and watched some TV for once last night. You know, it was a little relaxing, pretty easy day, but that was nice. For my son, we had a little birthday party the day before and had an inflatable T-Rex bounce house until it started storming, and then we had all his friends over and ate a bunch of desserts.
Yes. Hey, I follow you on social media, and it looks like you're always working. How important is it to have that balance, for family time and then for working time, and how do you maintain that?
Oh man, I block out certain windows of the day. Like during the school year, my kids get home from school around 4:30. They start getting ready for bed around 7. So in that timeline, I try to keep my schedule open with them and to get as much quality time as possible together. On the weekends, like Saturday, I'm pretty much done at noon. On Sunday, I'm done 9 or 10 a.m., which is about the time my wife's getting up out of bed, and that way I can spend all the time with the family there. So and a lot of times when they go to bed, I'll get back to like film work and studying. So I try to basically get less sleep and spend more time with family so I can do that as well as, focus on my career.
All right. It seems like it's always it could be a challenge, for a lot of different people. And I always ask that, people who are successful in their field and people who always seem to be into something or have something going on or working with other people and their schedules as well. How do you maintain that? So that's awesome. Okay, so there's been some drama that I've seen, and I'll call it drama, but it's important to talk about and figure out what's going on. I think so. Peak fighting, War Training
Yeah.
Center has some fighters that compete on that card. What do we have going on with that situation? What happened, and where are we at with it now?
So basically what happened is Sandy was in a 5 round title fight, Sandy Jerez. She was 3-0 going against Jamie Jefferson, who got a last minute guillotine against Mia Graw, one of my other fighters in a previous fight. And Mia's a really solid fighter too. She was a little overly aggressive that fight. And with like 30 seconds left, she got tapped after winning the entire fight. And so it was a big fight, big first title for Sandy and trying to keep her undefeated record. And Sandy went out there and had a rough first round. Second round, she outstruck the girl, looked really good. Third round, they call an eye poke, and it was her hand was up. It was like this. It wasn't fingers forward, it was fingers up, but it still got a little thumb on the eye poke on this girl's right eye. The girl decides to continue to fight the rest of the round, which was about a minute in the round, so it's an amateur fight. And then 2 minutes later, Sandy's just beating the brakes off this girl, and her eyes swelling up. And then it goes to the corner after the round, and in between rounds, the girl doesn't answer the bell, and the ref's over there talking to her, and we're screaming like, "Hey, this is a TKO. You can't wait that long. Like, you don't get 5 or 10 minutes break." And then they stop the fight and say, "We're going to decision." They go to decision, and it goes to split decision for the other girl, which it should have been a TKO. I mean, the girl continued after the eye poke. If you decide you're able to continue, then you continue fighting. And she fought the rest of the round. She ate probably 70 or 80 strikes that round. I need to add it up on the film and to get the punch count down. And then got taken down, got beat up some more, got hit up against the cage. Basically did nothing. Should have been a TKO. And then the girl's left eye swelled shut. So this was her left eye that swelled shut, but it was her right eye that got poked. And then the ref stops it, and he says the reason he stopped it and didn't call it TKO is because of the eye poke, which it wasn't at the end of the round when the eye poke happened. It was the beginning of the round. So the girl already said she can continue to fight, and she did. So then on top of that, the eye poke was on the right eye. The right eye was perfectly fine. She got beat up on the left eye, and that got swollen shut. And then they're calling a stoppage because of that. They're going to the judges because they're saying a penalty caused them to go to the judges early, which is just ridiculous. Because like I said, this was at the beginning of the round. This is unheard of. This isn't the rules. This guy's making up rules on the fly. And so they go to the judges. They rule in the other girl's favor, which the crowd goes nuts and insane because Sandy clearly should have got a TKO. In addition to that, Sandy, in my opinion, easily won the second round. I rewatched it multiple times, and she pieced that girl up in the second round. That girl threw a lot in the second round, but she missed everything. Sandy's head move was on point. She was weaving and slipping and countering back. And then the third round. So then,
I lost your audio for about 10 seconds. So the last thing I heard was at the third round.
Yeah. So then at the third round, basically they do the decision and they call it and they say it's a split decision win for the other girl, which in my opinion, should never been the case. I thought Sandy beat her in the second and third, but shouldn't have gone a decision. Should have been a TKO because she didn't answer the bell and did get off the stool. And then they re-announced it that night. I said, okay, it's a no contest. I talked to the Arkansas Commission. I'm like, hey, this should have been a TKO. They're like, we agree. We thought she won the fight clearly in the second, third round. But on top of that, it should have been a fight. It's a 5-round fight. Should have gone all 5. You can't do that. And I was like, well, do something about it. This is like the head commissioner guy there, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I can't. In Arkansas, the referees don't answer to me. He's like, they're employed by Peak. He's like, Peak employs the judges and the referees. He's like, all we do is oversee things and we can appeal it and try to change it later. So they got on the phone with some other guy who's the head honcho of Arkansas, I guess. And we're trying to get it fixed and it didn't happen. And they end up telling us within the next couple of days, we filed appeals, like immediately sending emails, official letters. And then they said, hey, we'll have an appeal process in December and it should get overturned. Well, December comes along and we're constantly staying on top of them. And then someone emails me and says, hey, if we have a meeting about this, we will let you know when that is. But that's only if. And I was like, wait a second, you said in December we're having this. So then I started blowing it up on social media and tagging them, tagging the refs, tagging the commission, the promotion, and everyone else involved with this, and trying to get some justice for Sandy because this girl should be 4-0 and have a TKO win with a belt around her waist. And thankfully this morning I woke up to an email from Arkansas Commission, and now we have a date for a hearing, January 11th.
That's awesome. They probably heard you were coming on here.
Yeah, maybe so. There's a couple MMA websites that I've reached out to.
Yeah.
So I think that's maybe part of it. They don't want to get blown up all over the place about this. In addition to that, Peak is somewhere we'd gone many times, and the reason we went there is because they would put on so many of our fighters at the same time. We have a huge roster, and it was nice to get multiple fighters on the same cards. But this last card for them, they really went cheap. Basically the building was not to code. They had the warm-up area upstairs. There was no lights. They plugged in some floodlights up there. There was broken drainage pipes, and there was water leaking from the pipes, and then there was sewage leaking out of the restroom. They shut down the restroom up there. There was no AC. They just opened up a window to a balcony, and it was just concrete everywhere. There's wires hanging out of the walls and the ceilings. One guy was reaching up to stretch, another fighter not on my team, and he reached up and almost touched a wire, and I'm like, this is horrendous, And so
yeah, that was a different venue than they'd ever used.
About that, and he basically chewed us out about it. And was like, just deal with it. And I'm like, whoa, dude, you should be apologetic. You've had nice venues and nice cards before, and everything's gone smooth. And now all of a sudden, this is not going how it should be. And then we complain about it. Someone who's put on a lot of people on your cards and brought a lot of views to your cards, and now all of a sudden you're chewing us out because we complained about something that's an actual problem and a health code violation. So needless to say, with Arkansas and with Peak issues, I don't know if we're going to be going back, man.
Wow. Okay. So in your opinion, where did the issue, who's to blame? Was it the commission? Was it Peak, the judges, the referee?
I think it starts with the ref. So I found out later, the ref told her when she got poked in the third round, he was like, hey, can you see? Are you having an issue? And she's like, I'm having trouble. But she was, because she'd been punched up in the second round too on her left eye.
Mm-hmm.
And he should have brought a doctor in immediately. Doctor would have came in and looked at her right eye, which was the one poked, and been like, her right eye is perfectly fine in my opinion, which it was. Her right eye wasn't the issue. So he never brought a doctor in. Then he told the girl, like, hey, if you stop right now, it's a no contest, which you don't tell them that. You just
Yeah.
basically say, can you see, or can you continue, or can you not continue? You know? And you bring a doctor in. If she says, hey, I don't know if I can continue, bring a doctor in to look at her. So he should have done that right then. He never brought a doctor in. And then in addition to that, when she couldn't answer the bell after the third round, he should have just called a stoppage. And then when I was talking to him, he's like, well, their coach said that she got poked in the other eye as well. And I'm like, her coach saying that, did you see that foul? And he's like, no, I never saw her get poked in the other eye. And I was like, neither did I. And she never said she got poked in the other eye in the middle of the round either. I was like, you can't just go by what her coach says. But I guess according to the promoter, he was telling me that ref does a lot of cards out in Oklahoma, which is really close to there, and that he's really good friends with that coach over there, and he thinks that had a factor in it. And maybe it did, maybe it didn't. That's just what I was told from the promoter, what his thoughts were. But, so one, it's on the promotion. They hired this ref. It wasn't from the state. They hired these judges, which made a dumb decision anyways. One judge, the one that did in our favor, she's like, I don't know what they were watching, and I really don't either. Like, if you slow down the film and watch, like, Sandy barely got touched in the second round. So she should have got the second and third clearly. So I don't get either of those things, but the ref should have called a TKO. He should have called a doctor in the middle of the eye poke. He should have called a doctor in between rounds. He just stopped it based on what the other coach said. And he stopped it. It should have been stopped, yes, if the girl can't continue, she can't see, but it should have been stopped because of the damage done from punches, not because of supposed eye poke that no one ever saw and never actually happened. And so I blame the ref. The ref told me, he's like, the reason I went to the decision, he's like, it's because I was so clearly thinking, he's like, I would have bet $1,000 on Sandy that she won the second and third round and thought it would have been the same results anyways. And that's why I told him, like, you can't change the rules just because you think it's going to be the same result. And I was like, in addition to that, it should have been a TKO result, not a decision result. And he's like, and that's why I asked him too. I was like, why didn't you stop in the third round when she landed all those strikes against the cage and the girl did nothing?
Yeah.
He's like, well, I told the girl she got out of the third round that she could go to a decision if she couldn't continue. And I was like, well, you already broke the rules right there then.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And there's video that I've seen shared out where Sandy's looking over at the referee, like, are you going to stop this? Because she's like kind of defending herself, not really doing anything, just kind of up against the cage, and she's just striking and striking. And she's like looking over there.
Absolutely. Sandy landed a ton of strikes. Yeah. She should have kept striking on the girl, but she ended up taking her down because the ref didn't stop it. She was looking over, like hitting her like this. And I mean, the girl was badly damaged. Her left eye was swollen shut. It was pretty difficult, I think, for that girl to continue. I don't blame her for stopping. And this is nothing against the girl. I blame the coach, though. The coach in Mia's fight kept calling for penalties on Mia, and she really wasn't committing them. She grabbed the cage a couple times, but it wasn't like to do anything with it. She had the girl against the cage, She just put her hands up there. But during Sandy's fight, he was calling for the same thing. He was like, Sandy's fingers are in the cage, which they never were. And the ref went and checked, and he's like, nah, they're not in there, and waved them off. And literally the strategy of the other coach was like, let me try to get all these penalties called because my girl's getting whooped. Not give my girl fighter advice on what she should be doing to get out of the situation. He was like, let me try to get penalties called. And he didn't, according to the ref and to the promoter, the other coach didn't want it to go to decision either because he was like, I want my girl to continue because if it goes to decision, she lost the second and third round. So even the other coach thought that. And then after it happened, he was like, oh, well, it's because of the eye poke is the reason she couldn't continue,
Yeah.
Like, he's a shady guy, in my opinion. Like, just be honest. If your fighter lost, and she lost. It should have been a TKO. I think everyone knows that.
Kind of just grasping at straws there or anything or a distraction. Like, hey, look at this. Yeah, I understand
absolutely. That. And it's annoying. I'm not. If our girls commit a penalty during the round, sure, call for it. But just looking to call for anything you can. Now the ref's focused on looking for whatever that coach is saying instead of actually what's in front of them. And he was like, Sandy had the girl against the cage and was landing strikes and knees, and the ref's looking over there behind her to see if her hands were touching the cage or not, which they weren't. They were grasped. But like, not ideal. And also, again, the ref shouldn't be listening to that other coach. He should be looking at what's in front of them. Yeah. But I think their relationship maybe is a factor in that.
So y'all, Sandy, she's one of the fighters, that y'all have. Y'all have a lot of other female MMA fighters. Do y'all have the most, I guess, like in the Houston area? It seems like y'all do.
Man, I really believe that. I think we have like 8 females on the team. We have a very good roster of girls, and they're all very talented. We have a bunch that have been doing smokers that'll probably make their amateur debut next year in 2022. But I mean, on top of that, we have quite a few that have already been fighting. We have Jasmine Crawford is out of the gym. She's a vet, a great boxer, has a good MMA record and background too, but she's in the gym all the time. She hasn't fought in years, but she's still involved in the team and helps all these other girls out. And then Rayne Guerrero is a 2-1 pro who I believe should be 3-0. I thought she got robbed on a peak card of all places in Arkansas. And on top of that, Rayne's fighting February 6th for Fury. I think Rayne will be in the UFC by the end of next year. She's just that good, man. She's 25er. She originally started off fighting at like 55, and now she's going to fight 25 her next
Wow.
fight. But she's just spectacular, and she's well rounded. And then Sandy, who should be 4-0 when this hearing's done, and then Mia Graw was fighting for the Fury title. And then we have Whitney Ontiveros, and then we have like up and coming girls like Annette and Kyle and Katie and a bunch of other girls in the gym, man. And I think that's part of it too. I think we're getting more girls added to the team just because we have so many girls on the team.
Yeah. Does that make it harder for some of the female fighters to find, I guess, local fights? Because y'all have a lot of female fighters, so I'm not sure if other gyms have that many to
Absolutely. Fight. I mean, when it comes down to it, Mia's looking for his fight for Fury for the title. They gave us an opponent. She backed out for whatever personal reasons were going on, and then they offered it to the 3 other girls in the Houston area who could actually take it, and all 3 girls had other reasons where they couldn't do it or whatever. I don't know why they said no. A couple of them a message and, like whatever, but that brings you down to like 4 possible opponents with winning records in the Houston area at 115 that's not on our team. So now they're looking elsewhere and out of town, and that gets more difficult for sure. But as a female fighter in general, like I feel like the females have a lot more drops. Rayne went through so many opponents in her last few cards. Like Rayne should have had probably 3 or 4 more fights by now, but she keeps having opponents back out last minute on her. And then you can't get anyone to replace those girls. Like you'll have like a week left and they'll come back with some, like Rayne's had 3 pro fights and they'll come back. Like the only girl who said yes is a UFC vet who has 15 fights,
Wow. Yeah.
And it's on a 1 week notice now with a whole different style and game plan. Like it's very difficult. It's been tough.
Yeah. So they're trying to, I guess, bring girls in from other places or wherever they can find them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So I know that there's a lot of female fighters there. Y'all have a ton of, other fighters, and then the name, War Training Center, it always comes up anytime that I'm talking to a fighter because they fought someone there. And I guess the thought is, y'all produce some good fighters. Who else do y'all have there on the roster?
We have a huge team, man. We got Kron Reed. A lot of people forgot about Kron Reed. He's fighting hopefully in January or February at the latest. So we're looking on that. He was a 6-0 amateur, won the Tough Enough belt, won the Fury amateur belt. And he's one of the best 35ers in the world, in my opinion. Like I would put him against guys in the UFC. I would put him against ranked guys in the UFC and give him a chance to win. Like I think he's that solid. He's well-rounded. He's a dog in there. He's got some length for 35 division. As I mentioned before, Rayne's another good one. I think like she's just outside the UFC. I don't see many girls giving her a tough look, especially not at 125. I think she'll be in the big show by the end of next year. Zack Reese is another one. He was a peak amateur champ. His only loss as an amateur was to Kevin Holland back in the day. Zack Reese is an 85er, just phenomenal. Like he's 2-0 as a pro right now, but I think he knocks out like 4 wins and he's going to be in, maybe even less. Like he's just that good, and I don't see anyone giving him a look outside the big show. Let's see, Josh Walker. Josh Walker is 4-1. He won literally 4 fights last year or this year in 2021.
Wow.
And I think 2 more wins, and he has a good shot of getting the call up. Josh Alton, who's 4-2 at 45. I think 2 or 3 wins, he gets his call up. Santiago Guzman, we won 4 fights. We went 4-0 this year. Santiago Guzman started off his career 0-2. Didn't have much ground game. It was fighting at a weight class above his own. Now he's fighting at 55. Although a couple of his last fights have been at 55. At 70. But that's not because he didn't make 55. It's because his opponents came in super heavy a day or 2 out, and he had to move up weight. But Santiago Guzman, man, he knocks out another 4-0 year. Like he's looking at 8-2, man. That's a great record, and that's an 8-fight win streak. And he's improving all the time. Like he came in with no ground a couple years ago, and now he's got very solid ground. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's finding his own style in the cage, and he's tough, man. You can't knock that guy out. People go in there trying to play his game with them and brawl with them or get in the pocket and sit and trade. And like you don't want to sit and trade with that guy. It's just not the game plan to do on it. It's tough for those guys, but they find out.
Before we went on air, we were talking a little bit about, a lot of transplants. A lot of people move from other parts of the country or, switch gyms or whatever the case may be. Why is that? Do you think that so many people are willing to change their life, I guess, to chase a dream to come train over there with you guys?
I mean, absolutely, man. Some of these guys have made little visits to, I think, our gym. And when they made the visit to the gym, they liked the training, they liked the coaching, they liked the roster. There's a great staff of coaching all the way around through the gym. And we have all weight classes in our gym. We have guys from strawweight female, flyweight male, all the way up to heavyweight males. I think we might have the most heavyweights on the team, like active heavyweights in the Houston area. So I think that's a big factor. Like having training partners is huge. You have to have training partners at your weight class, above your weight class, below your weight class. And now with everyone coming through, we have that. And I think a lot of I don't know what it is. I don't really talk to a lot of these guys ahead of time too much, but I think it's like our other fighters have these relationships, or these guys somehow through competition in the past or social media, and they're like, I think they're recruiting their friends and
Yeah.
their ex teammates and stuff from college and stuff like that. I guess that's what's happening. But yeah, I mean, we have so many different fighters who have wrestled up north and lived up north in the Northeast, and now they're moving here, and it's crazy to me.
I saw that you had posted on social media the other day. It was in a story, and it was like, hey, what were your thoughts when you first met me, and what do you think now? And then you returned the thing, and a lot of the stuff were like, I thought, it was just interesting. I thought you were like tough or didn't like me or all this other things, but I don't know. I thought that was interesting, and it was like a reoccurring theme, at least.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think I've been coaching 4 years full time now. And being a full-time coach has taken me outside of like the normal workplace where I used to have to like have a nicer personality at work and put on a show and put on a face. And I
Yeah.
realized like that's almost counterproductive to my coaching. So when I'm coaching, a lot of people meet me in the gym first, obviously. They're not going to meet me outside the training room. And in the training room, I don't feel like I'm necessarily mean. I'm just very honest. Like if someone does something wrong, I'm very straightforward about it and honest. And to do something good, I'm straightforward about it. But I don't sugarcoat things. I'm trying to make sure I don't curse on air.
Yeah.
I don't sugarcoat things. Like if they mess up something, I say exactly how it is, and I'm very direct about it. And I don't think about like how they're gonna feel about how I said that. It's just objective. Everything's objective. And now outside the gym, it's a different story. Like I have a lot of relationships with these fighters. I'm a young coach myself. I just turned 34, so I'm not too far off on age from many of these guys, and I have a good friendship with them. A lot of them are like my brothers. But because of that, like in the gym, like that's different situation. I'm coaching the gym and I got to be focused, and if they're doing something wrong, I'm going to let them know because I want perfection. And we're never going to be perfect fighters, but the closer we are to perfection, the better we're going to perform.
Yeah. How would I guess your teaching style? You're a really good communicator. When it comes to getting your message across and everything. And I know that's important whenever you're teaching. I guess not sugarcoating. What else? How else would you describe like your teaching style?
Uh, I guess I'm a little bit of a technical guy. Like I try to break down details in a lot of practices. I try to get a lot of reps in. Like my team's going to get bored. There's things that they've been doing for the last year or two, and they're still going to do it every single practice. They're going to get bored. But I'm trying to break down things to concepts most of the time in the big practices. And in those concepts, I think will translate over to the cage. So they're going to drill the same concept over and over and over again. And then when I have smaller groups, I'll get more technical with them and do like technique-based things and slow down the practices and say, this arm goes here, this goes there, that situation. But I have a lot of fighters who have minimal time training in mixed martial arts, and they're super high athletes, so they're really good. Like they were a Division I wrestler, or they were a national champ wrestler, or an All-American, or they had a great boxing background. And so they have a certain skill set that's already on par with everyone in their division. So now I'm trying to speed the other things up. So instead of like working a million different techniques, I'm like, in this situation, push his head every single time. As long as his head doesn't touch you, you're good. Things like that. And then they can just kind of athlete their way around those things. And then over time, we'll add the techniques and we'll add the details and clean everything up. But I'm definitely a concept teacher at times. And then that's more so in the morning practices. In the evening practices, it's the smaller groups and it's a little slower. And then we'll do the same thing over and over and over again. Like I'm not throwing a million techniques out there in the evening. It's like, we'll do one or two techniques and we're going to do it for an hour or two straight.
Yeah. So besides all of the MMA fighters and the people who are out there, competing, is there room for people who are just hobbyists or just want to get in shape or people that want to learn self-defense at War Training Center?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the majority of what War is filled with. I don't coach the public except for in private lessons because I put all my focus on a team. Thankfully, Jeremy's allowed me to do that. Jeremy owns the War Training Center. Shout out, Jeremy. Great guy, and my focus is always on the fighters. Like that's all I worry about, which helps me, I think, evolve myself as a coach. Like I can study and focus on things that are tailored to people who already have experience. I can game plan for people who have experience. But yeah, there's kickboxing classes, boxing, kids, jiu-jitsu, kids, wrestling. My kids do the wrestling and jiu-jitsu there. There's striking for kids. They have MMA sparring and stuff for the kids. Even sometimes it's really cool. They have workout classes, wrestling classes, high school wrestling team, middle school wrestling team. it's a well-rounded gym. They have something for the entire family, and there are a ton of families up there that I've gotten to know and meet from basically my kids being in the same classes as their kids. But yeah, I mean, anyone can join in on that, and I think everyone should. I think being in any type of combat gym for an extended period of time will do wonders for your personality and for, make you have some humility in life.
Mm-hmm. There's also, isn't there affiliate gyms with War Training Center?
Absolutely, man. A lot of our fighters have gyms of their own, and then we have teams that are like basically like our brother gyms and affiliated with us, like
Mm-hmm.
Wendy out in College Station, Bobby Powers out there, and then we have Texas Striking Academy with Joel. Joel's in the gym quite a bit too, man. It's great having him around. And then Strong Style Mixed Martial Arts with Burmaster down in Rosenberg, and we train with the Next Level guys as well. Tony Fitz coaches at our gym and coaches over there at Next Level, and Tommy's through quite a bit, and his son, and yeah, we have a good relationship. And then Morgan has his gym, White Tiger Kickboxing, and Corey McCoy has his gym, McCoy Martial Arts. So yeah, we have a great relationship and affiliates with multiple teams around the Houston area.
Awesome. Okay, so there's one more thing that we definitely need to talk about. So the last time I think that we did an interview, you were out in Las Vegas with Trevin Giles, I believe. And do we have any news for him? Any fights that are coming up?
Yeah, man, he's going down to 170. He's going to be fighting January 22nd on the UFC 270 card in Anaheim, California. He's fighting Michael Morales. Michael Morales is 12-0, was the Ecuadorian national champ in wrestling. Very good fighter, athletic. He just won his contender series fight and got his contract, so a tough matchup for him. But I'm excited for Trevin to be going to 170. Trevin's only 6 foot. On fight week, he's pretty much walking around 95 by then, which is pretty close to what a lot of the welterweights are coming in at that time. And he's slimmed down. He's shredded up now. He's shirtless half the time, showing off the abs. And I think it'll be a pretty easy cut to 170. I think it'll be the same as his cuts previously to 85. And at 85, he was always undersized. Everyone was bigger than him. I think that was part of it at 85 too, is every 85er was so much bigger than him. They always expected to be much stronger than him. And he's a very high level athlete, very strong and very technical. And when they got in the cage, that changed. They realized that he's just because he's undersized doesn't mean he's understrength. But at 170, I think it's going to be great for his career. I think he's always been a 170. We talked about this in the past. Like his frame is a 170. In fact, in pictures next to our welterweights, he looks about the same size.
How does his game plan change? Does it change at all?
No, man, Trevin's well-rounded. I mean, this guy's coming in. He likes to throw some Supermans and fancy kicks and spinning stuff. And, he threw like 4 Supermans off the cage in his contender series fight, I think. So that's a little awkward. But we have guys that can emulate that. Morgan Oriahi throws a lot of that weird stuff, and he's long too. And he's also a welterweight. So that's a good look striking-wise. And then we got a bunch of wrestlers on the team that are trying to grapple with Trevin as much as possible. But to be honest, like I think Trevin's well-rounded, and that helps us in so many fights. He can beat this guy on the ground. He can beat him on the feet. He's clearly going to have the striking advantage. But in all honesty, I think he'll have the grappling advantage too. And, as long as he stays offensive on that and doesn't have too much time, like this guy shooting, like he needs to make this guy regret shooting or get offensive on it and take the guy down himself. But I think Trevin's going to win this fight and have a great run at 170.
As a coach, being in the corner there for those UFC events, what's that like for you? I always ask fighters, making that walk, what's it like from that coach perspective?
And it's pretty cool. I mean, I enjoy the crowd definitely, but the Apex, like obviously coaching wise, the Apex, you can hear everything in there and they can hear you more clearly. But we did that UFC 264 card with Conor McGregor, and the T-Mobile Arena was sold out, and it was nuts in there. But when it came to fight time, like I didn't feel like I had to yell extra loud. Like, I don't know, you get used to hearing your coach, and your fighter gets used to hearing that. And like we were conversing while he's in the cage, basically. Like he was communicating with us while he was fighting. So it's a neat atmosphere. There's a ton of energy. I think the only thing is like keeping your fighter poised and controlled and not getting, swung by the crowd cheering or booing or anything else. Like focus on your game plan. Don't try to force the knockout. I think that's the thing you see a lot of times with fighters is they get overzealous and try to force knockouts when there's a crowd though. Like look at the UFC Houston card 2 cards ago. All the Houston guys did horrible on that card. And I think part of that reason is because the crowd was there and all their families there watching, and they were like, oh, they bought into the crowd and they went out there and just started planting their feet and throwing heavy instead of sticking to their game plan and technique. But, that's something that comes over time too and experience. So as long as the fighter can stay poised and controlled, then that's good. We're okay. And on top of that, the other team's going for that same thing. Like the other team's dealing with the same issue.
Yeah, because you can't really – I mean, I guess you could with – and I've heard people doing that, putting speakers of booze and all that stuff, but trying to recreate that atmosphere. You can try and prep for it, but I guess there's really nothing like it. And I don't know. That's just from an outsider's perspective, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Apex is basically like the gym. I mean, it really feels like that when you're in there. It's like we're in a training room right now, and we're about to fight this fight in a training room, like we're doing rounds. It feels like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything, but I mean, there's definitely energy from being in the huge crowd, and it's a cool experience. It's awesome to see, and all the fans cheering and booing. And it's great to have that involvement. I love that aspect of it. But if it was up to me, every fight would be in the Apex probably.
Yeah, I got you. All right. So, hey, is there anything else that you'd like to share? I mean, anything you can reiterate, or maybe that we didn't touch on?
I think that's it. Keep an eye out on the roster. I expect next year. I really believe I got at least 5 more on the roster. I'm gonna make the big jump to the UFC. We got a bunch of guys that are 1 or 2 wins away, so I'm excited about that. If you're looking to join or sign up to an MMA gym, there's so many in the Houston area. The greater Houston area has probably got like 100, 150 MMA gyms. There's some kind of involvement with mixed martial arts or jiu-jitsu. So if you're listening to this and have thought about training, just do it. Even if you don't plan on fighting, go do it. And it's life-changing. You'll build a camaraderie that's different when someone's taking your life at their hands when they're choking you and you're tapping and they let go. Like, that's a great experience, and that's a lot of trust involved, and you'll build friendships you've never thought you'd have. So
Awesome. Thank you for making some time this morning. I appreciate you.
Thank you.